Hello, YouTubers, and welcome back to another episode of the Grandstand here on the Ohio Patriot Education Network YouTube channel. I am, as always, your host, AR the Ohio Patriot, and for today's quick episode, we're going to talk about losing loved ones and the stages of grief. Um, so I found out here in the last hour that my extended family member, being my brother's mother-in-law, finally passed away today. I say finally, obviously, because she had been battling a lot of things for months now and had basically been in the hospital for, I think it was like 2 months now or something, with various health issues relating to just, end of life, basically, is what it is. And, we found out the other day she was basically something similar happened to my father, actually, which is she was had fluid on her lungs and was essentially drowning in her own fluid, is what it was. And yeah, the doctors and nurses at the hospital were trying to, do what they could to get it drained and everything else like that. But there's not really much you can do at that point, honestly. Like, obviously, we have medicine and stuff, and we have like modern medicine and whatnot. But like, if you're in that position, like, there's not a whole lot that can be done, honestly, except like, medications and painkillers and stuff like that, basically. And it kind of like, it's like one of these things where it's like, people tell me these things, and I'm just like, I don't really feel much of anything anymore. Like I know I should feel sad. I know I should feel grief, but like I almost don't, honestly. And I feel like it's mostly because of the fact that it's like I really didn't know this woman all that well. I mean, we legitimately had maybe 10 interactions with each other, if even that many, in my entire life. Between the time that my brother met my sister-in-law and then up to, the point where we were down there visiting for various holidays and stuff like that and hanging out with my niece and whatnot. Because, her mother was only there a few times, is what it was. And it's like I maybe carried on like 4 or 5 conversations with this woman in my entire life, honestly. And it wasn't even like long conversations. It was like, hey, how's it going? And it was like, maybe like a 5-minute chat or something. So she was almost a stranger to me, honestly. And maybe that's why I'm not feeling grief. But at the same time, it's like I wish I felt something. And then I was looking up some stuff here earlier, and I'm wondering because obviously, for those who don't know about what the 5 stages of grief actually are, it's denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, and then there's also like a 7-stage one that includes all that stuff plus guilt, an upward turn, and then reconstruction, basically, is what they call it here. But then when you look at other stuff here, because I was looking at Wikipedia over the whole thing, or not Wikipedia, I was looking at Google search about it. Here is what it was, and it has a bunch of different things here for stages. So you got anger, depression, acceptance, bargaining, denial, guilt, sadness, shock, complicated grief disorder, anticipatory grief, prolonged grief disorder, denial and isolation, panic, crying, delayed grief, which might be what I'm experiencing right now, honestly. And then we got the 5 stages: denial stage, acceptance stage, and then absent grief. So, and when you look at delayed grief here, it says terms of delayed grief and unresolved grief are variations of grieving after a loss. The meaning of unresolved grief is any aspect of grieving that has yet to be resolved. And then obviously absent grief is a type of complicated grief where after experiencing a loss like the death of a loved one, you're unable to show any normal signs of grief. And then it goes on from there, basically. But yeah, I almost feel like that's what I'm experiencing right now personally, because it's like, and I feel like it was kind of the same thing when my uncle died. Like he was taken from us way too soon, and obviously it's because of fucking big pharma. But we can only talk about all that stuff is what it is there. But yeah, like for him, it was one of these situations where it was like, like I knew he was gonna pass because of what was happening there, and I had initial grief, is what it was, like a little bit where I was, crying a little bit over it and stuff like that when he finally did die, because it was one of those situations where it's like, you know, my brother and I were supposed to go see him and have a final goodbye. We never got to have that, is what it was. And then he ended up passing like the day before I went down to go visit him. And so I was basically like initially grieving over that whole thing. And then it became a whole situation where it wasn't until his funeral that I just fucking lost it, man. Like I was like emotionally just, a wreck that day. And I'm wondering if it's kind of similar to what's happening right now, honestly. So, or maybe I'm just not being able to show, grief for my sister-in-law's mother's death. And it's not going to be until we would go to a funeral that I'm actually going to have like a full-blown, Adam has to go sit in the corner for a half hour and just cry. And for those wondering why I'm getting a little bit emotional right now, it's for my uncle. That man raised me for like 20 plus years of my life. And it was one of those situations where I know he should have been with us for more years. And it was because of goddamn Big Pharma's fucking job bullshit that killed him. It pisses me off, honestly. It really does. So, anyway. But yeah, it's like, it's a whole thing, man. It's like you can't really show grief for one person, but your memory's thinking about somebody else and you start, breaking down. So, I don't know, man. It's been a really bad month, honestly. Anyway, I just figured I'd come on here and talk about that for a few minutes. I'll be back later tonight on Honda's chat for the Gay Frogs whenever he does that in a few hours here. And then we'll be back around tomorrow afternoon for a couple things. So we'll be talking more about issue 1 here in Ohio. It's not even that. It's like I said, like I don't really feel anything for my sister-in-law's mom, but like it's thinking about my uncle that gets me going. So I don't know. I'm gonna call it though. I don't want to have a full breakdown on camera because sometimes that has happened in the past, and I don't really want to, be one of those guys that goes full emotional on a live stream or anything like that. So I'd rather just be able to, think about the good times and everything else then. And plus, I got some stuff in the oven that's about to ding. So anyway. I just figured I'd come out here and talk about this because, people are going to grieve and, all of us grieve differently. So, if you've lost people, you know what I'm talking about, man. Anyway, like I said, I'll be back for Honda's chat later. And then we'll be doing another Grandstand tomorrow about issue 1. So, have a good one, y'all. Stay safe. Hug your loved ones. Keep things going. And prepare for what's come next, honestly. Night, y'all.